Jokowi started his education at the Indonesian State Primary 111, a school which was known to be for lower-class citizens. Moreover, the young Jokowi experienced 3 evictions, which forced him and his family to leave his home. Despite achieving his degree from Gadjah Mada University in Yogyakarta in 1985, Jokowi decided to work in his grandfather's factory, which produced furniture, leading to the creation of his own furniture production-based startup. With the export and sales of furniture into Western states, the company grew in reputation, resulting in the encounter between Jokowi, Mikkel Romagnan, and Bernard Genet, European customers who gave Joko Widodo the name Jokowi, the nickname he is famous for until today. Furthermore, during his times in Europe, Jokowi experienced the infrastructure and urban layouts of the Western states, which is the reason why he decided eventually to become a politician in order to implement in his hometown Surakarta what he has seen abroad. Later, Jokowi became the mayor of Surakarta for 7 years and seized the opportunity to develop the city according to his vision. As a successful politician of the people by establishing an interactive relationship with the people of Solo, Jokowi organized the real estate in Surakarta, and his motivation for doing so lied in his childhood due to his experience with forced evictions. Most importantly, Jokowi decided to implement the European development framework he was very satisfied with during the many times he visited Europe for business purposes. His success also allowed Jokowi to proceed in his political career to become the governor of Jakarta and eventually, 2 years later, in 2014, to be elected as the President of Indonesia. But what is the Nawacita? The Nawacita, translatable as 9 agendas, premises 9 individual ideals to be implemented as guidelines to the vision and mission of Joko Widodo and Yusuf Kala. The vision is entwined with 3 spheres: officer in politics, independent economics, and lastly, characters and cultures. The Nawacita therefore contains these 9 agendas, reaching from human development to central regional government relations. Thereby, human development refers to the protection of the state and all citizens by bringing back state values. This is the reason why President Jokowi had big interest reviving and restoring Semarang as a maritime city in order to maintain the cultural values that are coming along with the city as an inspiration for Indonesia's national character. On the other hand, economic competitiveness as the second agenda of the Nawacita is mainly reflected by the implementations of Industry 4.0 and the preparations for the upcoming ASEAN connectivity in 2025. The concept of Industry 4.0 aims to reach the goal of ensuring that Indonesia will be among the top 10 biggest economies by 2030. As one measure to remain competitive, the president ensured the preparation of 5 major ports in Indonesia. And what is down-to-earth and economic diplomacy? Combining the principles of Bebas dan Aktif with the concept of down-to-earth diplomacy provides Jakarta with a new approach according to President Jokowi. Jokowi emphasized that Indonesia's foreign policy remains free and active. However, the president claimed that as many friends as Indonesia had, they could not harm the national interest. According to Jokowi, being free and active to be friends with all nations should nonetheless be felt by the people of Indonesia. With this notion, Jokowi manages to combine 3 ideas: the principle of Bebas Aktif, down-to-earth diplomacy, and lastly the mission statement of Jokowi's predecessor, former President Yudhoyono: 1,000 friends and 0 enemies, but modified into an inward-looking approach. President Jokowi's instructions were clear to primarily shift trade and investment flow into the focal point. And with this plan, Jokowi intends the implementation of an advanced trade balance position for Indonesia by cooperating with Indonesia's regional and general partner states.
But can we make similar assertions about Jokowi's second term and Indonesia Maju? The strategy of Indonesia Maju, that is literally translated Indonesia moving forward, serves as an outline for Indonesian strategic political priorities. Formulated in 2019, it sets 9 key points, which yet again continue Jokowi's vision of his previous term. Accordingly, Indonesia is intended to develop itself, however under the premise of sovereignty, independence, and mutual cooperation. With a reference to mutual cooperation or gotong royong, it becomes even more clear that Indonesia Maju continues where the vision of Jokowi's first term had previously ended. Furthermore, with a reference to independence and sovereignty, Indonesia continues to connect itself with the Bebas Aktif principle, which stands in the context of Indonesian post-colonial aspirations. Indonesia Maju consists of 9 major principle sets, namely human development, economic competitiveness, development equality, sustainable development, arts and culture and national characteristics, rule of law, security and defense, bureaucracy, and central regional government relations. The contemporary stance of foreign policy analysis includes no longer state actors exclusively, but also other forms of stakeholders within the international environment. However, the intrinsic side of foreign policy remains to be a domestic lens, meaning that the foreign policy of a state actor is formulated under the premise of a national interest and a domestic cultural cognitive background, as well as other socio-political attributes of a nation. A similar paradigm shift is notable in the world of diplomacy, where diplomacy has reinvented itself, now acknowledging numerous tracks and a variety of governmental and non-governmental actors. Furthermore, we have to acknowledge that diplomacy does not exclusively build bridges, instead it can be both spear and shield to enforce or secure national interests through external dialogue and relations. Security, a new framework for analysis from 1998 by Barry Busan and his colleagues, provides a revolutionary framework for security studies known under the term securitization or Copenhagen School of Security Studies. The book evolves around 5 very distinctive areas, namely the military, political, economic, environmental and societal area. Securitization hereby creates synergies between the sometimes simplistic paradigm of classical realism and constructivist perspectives, most importantly in such a way that it covers new non-traditional security issues and non-state-centric reference objects in an appropriate and comprehensive way. The model includes multiple areas beyond military, and therefore it is the most appropriate concept to explain some of the Indonesian priorities with the contemporary and historic background of Indonesia Maju. Securitization allows us to understand the politicization of economic growth, economic development, the creation of a maritime fulcrum, and other priorities as a national security interest. Indonesia Maju provides Jokowi's second term a horizontal and vertical dimension if it comes to economy and development. Development is now urged to be sustainable, includes human development, and it is to be arranged under the premise of equality. Although this clearly gives Jokowi's vision of economic development more depth, we should also assume that this inward-looking part of Jokowi's presidency will more than ever shape foreign policy and diplomacy in a way to benefit intrinsic domestic interests. Paired with the motives of human development and even domestic security interests, the inward-looking visions of Indonesia Maju wish to address the very domestic issues that need to be tackled in order to guarantee internal stability and economic readiness. The politicization of culture and arts in Indonesia Maju furthermore underlines how national identity have become a reference object of national interest and security. It is noteworthy that economic focal points and development still have to fit the narrative of an independent and sovereign Indonesia. Considering that economic competitiveness and performance connect as indicators of power, it is not too far off to assume that under President Jokowi, the Indonesian economy has potentially become a reference object in sense of security and national interest. In combination with all other sets of Indonesia Maju, it is not surprising that President Jokowi's second term has been dubbed inward-looking by some scholars, meaning that foreign policy and diplomacy would ultimately serve the grand scheme of domestic priority. Interestingly, Indonesia Maju does not refer to the Indonesian Global Maritime Fulcrum or GMF, which at times has been taken as reinforcing evidence by some that inward-looking foreign policy and diplomacy will set a trend for Jokowi's second presidential term. But even if Jokowi was to set different priorities for Indonesia Maju, the outward-looking idea of GMF and its foundational initiatives still remain. Furthermore, Indonesia's long-term maritime militarization partially deals with the securitization of maritime economic pillars, once again underlining that under Jokowi the Indonesian economy has become a reference object of securitization.